Hey guys, welcome. I'm Jen Frost with Faith in Fabric, and today I'm going to be showing you how to make these absolutely adorable little Christmas tree napkins. Now, we'll be making them in a set of 4, but you can always make more. I'll be showing you how to do that. But what's really cute about these napkins is the way they fold. Now, this looks just like, a little back and forth Christmas tree, and you're like, okay, that's nice, it's a little napkin. But the trick to these is they actually open up to give you a lot more real estate and a lot more cake to eat during Christmas. So they're absolutely reversible, which makes them really fun, and you can always fold them based on whichever print you like the most on the outside. And then they fold right back up to make these adorable little trees. They're washable, so you can reuse them year after year, and you can probably use a lot of the fabric you already have at home in your stash. So let's get started. Now, I mentioned these are really easy to make and you are not going to need a lot of materials. There are, though, a few things you'll need. For example, you're going to need 2 half yards of fabric. So when you pick your fabrics, you're going to want to pick complementary fabrics that are going to go along and play well with each other, but ones that will actually show quite a difference. Now, for example, when you're picking those fabrics, you'll see if I had chosen a red fabric because I like, oh, well, red goes well with this. When I fold my tree up, you're not going to get that high contrast. So you want them to complement each other, but you do want a nice high contrast. Now, as you're picking out those 2 half yards of fabric, a half yard is going to make you a set of 4. So if you want to make a set of 8, I would just go ahead and get a full yard of each one of those fabrics, okay? You're also going to need a copy of the template. Now, the template is a free pattern for you. You can just go ahead down below. You can get this from the website. It's in the shop, so just check out. It's free. You can pick it up there. And if there happens to be any other patterns in there that you really like, you can use code TREE to get 10% off, okay? So pick up your pattern. You're going to take this, and then all you need after that is a sewing machine. You need an iron, and you need a chalk pen. So let's go ahead and get started. So once you print out your template, you're going to have 2 pages. And you'll see that's just because the actual template, the pattern itself, is too large to fit on 1 page. So you're basically going to cut out along the black lines on each one of them. And then this little section here is where it's going to overlap. So you'll see this little dotted line here is for where the top of this goes. This little dotted line here is for the bottom. So they're literally just going to go right on top of each other. I use a glue stick. You can use tape if you prefer, but this should be a pretty straightforward process. Now you'll see this is all marked as side A, so just in case there's any confusion on putting this together, this will be side A for your fabric A, and then if you prefer, you can mark fabric B or side B on the back, but pretty easy because it's just the opposite of side A. So let's get this cut out. I'll speed things up a little bit and we'll meet up after we're done cutting. Let's take a look at 2 different ways that you can take your paper and use your paper depending on whether you just rotate it or you flip it to create 2 different types of trees. Okay, so let's start with the more simple form. So on this one, you'll see these trees are absolutely identical. And that's because as the fabric was cut, the paper itself was just moved over. So for example, if we had our whole yard of fabric here, half yard, we would trace this one, and then we would trace this one. To make it even easier sometimes, when you're cutting these, you can cut your edge here, and then you basically just rotate, and you make your straight edge, and then that way when you're making this third one here, you could just line it up right here, and then you only have to cut 1 straight line. So that'll save you a little bit of time. But you'll see side A is staying up the entire time, right? I'm never flipping it over. So that would create, again, all of your trees to be absolutely identical. Now, if you would like to have your trees rotate, maybe if you think about your place settings and you want your trees to look slightly different from each other, you could do it this way. Now you'll see this fabric is the same fabric, but the trees are different, and that's because the fabric was flipped. So in this case, normally when we looked at the last example, you can think of those little stems down here, we went like this, and then we went like this on the previous. On this one, what was different is you'll see I cut these to be flipped. So I had side A and then I flipped it and made this one side B. and then you go side A, flip again for side B. So that's going to give you that different tree fold. So if you have both of them, once they're both sewn now, you'll see that this is that you're going to have your opposing print, your contrasting print actually be the top. So when you fold them up, they're going to still, use the same fabrics, but they're going to look slightly different. So this may be another alternative for you if you want kind of a little bit more mishmashed look and you don't want everyone to be absolutely identical. So 2 things to think about there. Now, I know you guys are all pros at cutting out fabric, so I didn't want you to sit here and watch me have to trace that template out and cut it all out. So I went ahead and I pre-cut my shapes. So you'll see here's my fabric A, and then here's my fabric B. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your A and you're going to flip it over on top of your B, right sides together. Okay, and then you can go ahead and you can just either use, I love these little clips. I used to always pin things, and I just lately been deviating towards these little clips to hold things together. You're going to just pin, or you're going to clip it in place, and you're going to do this for all 4 or all 8 or however many napkins you are making. So we're going to talk through the sewing of this. I'm going to turn this sideways just so it's a little bit easier for you to see the whole thing. So when you are sewing this, you're going to start up in the corner here. You're going to double stitch, back stitch here, or you could do a lock stitch if you prefer. You're going to come all the way down, 1/4 inch allowance around the corner, around the bottom, and then back up. And then you're going to leave probably about a 2-inch gap, and that's going to be to turn it, okay? So we'll sew this one together, and then we'll do a quick turn and talk about how we're going to be trimming some of these corners off right before we turn the fabric. Okay, so we're about to get started. Before we start, I want to talk to you about thread. So I have white thread in the bottom because that's going to be going against this side here. And I have a red thread on top because that's the red that I want to use as an accent to pick up this side. Now you can definitely use this as an opportunity to use up some extra little bobbin threads if you have them laying around, because again, you're not having to worry about using the same thread on the top and the bottom, especially if you have really contrasting fabrics like I do. So let's get set up here. So again, we have that 1/4 inch. I've got my little 1/4 inch allowance here, and we are going to start sewing. Now, I will speed things up in a moment. I just want to work through some of the corners here. So you see, I'm going to do a back stitch, lock that stitch in place, and then right when I come to the corner here, you can just leave your needle down, rotate, and then continue all the way around. So I'm going to speed things up, and then we'll meet up again at the end. Again, just as a reminder, once you get to your end, you do want to make sure you leave that like 2-inch gap here so you can turn it, and be sure to lock this stitch in place as well. Okay, so I've got them all sewn. I've got 4 stitched up. It was super easy. So I want to talk to you about trimming these. Before we turn them, I want to try to trim down some of this bulk that's on the edges, and that's going to make our points sharper. It's also going to make it easier to turn on some of these interior curves. So what you can do on the exterior corners, you're going to come very close to those corners. Bring it nice and close to the camera here. You can see I've just trimmed off all that extra along the edge. I'm going to do the same on this one. So I see my thread there, and I'm just going to come just close to that edge, obviously not cutting my thread, and leaving a few strands of fabric there because we don't want to get too close where we'll lose it. But reducing that bulk, you'll see, is going to make those corners a lot sharper. Okay, 2 more exterior corners here and here. And then we're going to talk about those interior corners because we also want to make it so that it won't pucker right here. So whereas before we were kind of cutting on the outside, this time we're going to kind of come and trim on the inside. Got to get these scissors sharpened. They're not quite as sharp as they used to be. It's because I'm using them for paper. You have to let me know in the comments. Do you guys keep your scissors separate? I usually do, I'll be honest, but these ones are getting older, so I've gotten a little bit lazy and I tend to use them for paper as well when cutting patterns. So we'll do the same on this interior. You see I'm just coming almost right up to where that thread is, and just kind of cutting down some of that bulk, and that's going to allow this to turn a lot easier. Okay, so you can see that that's a little cleaner now. I've got my interiors and my exteriors all trimmed up, and now this is going to be a lot easier to turn. So I'm gonna let you guys turn yours. I'll finish clipping and turning mine, and then we will meet back up. We are already down to turning. These go so fast. So once you are all trimmed up on your corners, you're just going to turn your fabric. So I like to start in the opposite corner, kind of scrunch your fingers all the way in and get to that corner, and then you're gonna flip it out. I always keep a chopstick handy just to kind of start poking through some of those corners. Again, don't press too hard. You don't wanna break it through, but you can get that corner worked. And then you're just going to turn the whole thing inside out here. Oh, you want to pay attention to that little tree stump. It's a little trickier sometimes to get out than you think. So this is again where your little chopstick or your little turning tool is going to come in very, very handy. Just kind of work those corners. And then I like to drag mine all the way around. So I'll start kind of in this corner down here in the bottom and just kind of press that seam all the way around to help bring it out. So you'll also be able to see here, this is why you'll see how nice, once we press this, how nice and flat this is going to sit. And that's because we've really trimmed all that extra bulk down out of those corners. So that extra few minutes there for that trimming really came and made a huge difference. Okay, so we'll get this worked through. And now we are on to pressing. Okay, so you've got your little tree here. You should have 3 more of these, or 5 more of these, 6 more of these, depending on how many you guys are making. So you're just going to come through and press this. Now my only tips for pressing, as always, you want to press, not be ironing, especially when you come down here. You're going to just try to work this as smoothly as you can. Obviously, when we're making that 90-degree angle right there, it is going to be a little tight. So you just want to, arrange it as best you can and then gently press down. Then once you come over here, make sure you line these 2 fabrics up as clean as you can. Again, this is that hole where we turned, and then you're going to press them down. And that way they'll be perfectly ready to go once it's time to come back and top stitch all the way through. So let's talk about the red lines. So on your template, you're going to see you have these red lines. These are your fold lines. So we're going to fold them on here, and then we're going to translate that over to here using our chalk. So you're first going to fold the long line in. You'll see actually there's a little point here, and the point is 1/4 inch in, and that's because when you sewed this, you have that accounts for that 1/4 inch allowance. Okay, so you're going to take your paper and you're going to fold the first one on the red line in. Okay, then you're going to take your next one and you're going to fold here and then fold one more time. And that's going to give you this nice little Christmas tree. Now again, you'll see you're going to have that little extra here for your allowance, so you don't have to worry too much about that. I'll show you how you can mock that up here if your seams are ever so slightly off. Okay, so first thing, you're going to come and you're going to line up your little tree with your stem end attached to your stem. Okay, you're going to come up and you're going to make that curve. You're going to let that little bit overlap. Then you're going to take your chalk and you're just going to mark that. I had to use white chalk on here so you guys can hopefully see it a little bit. It's kind of hard to see chalk lines. So there's my first chalk line. All right. And we'll take it and we'll open it back up to the next one. Here's our next red line. And then our very last red line. And we want to make sure that all of those points are connecting to that same corner spot. So you'll see here's all of my lines and they're all going to radiate out of that center. This one's slightly off, so I'm going to adjust that. I think I crimped my paper a little bit, so I'll keep my end point come to my center and just fix that part of the line. So now we're ready to sew. You can erase that. And you'll see now when you take your napkin and you fold it, it's going to be folding literally right on those lines that you just made. Okay, and so again, you can actually, if you don't want to put those lines in, you don't have to. You can just, you know, top stitch all the way around the edge. I like to put the lines in. I think it adds just a little bit of character. Here's one that I finished already. You'll see it's got the little line stitched into it. It just holds the fabrics again together a little bit better. And you'll see on this one, my fold line is actually not even exactly right where my stitch was. I've been sewing these with my son and they still worked perfectly anyway, because when you press them, you're going to be basically pressing them and lining them up the way that you would want them to line up anyway, okay? These are more just little general guidelines. So now when you sew, I recommend you start right here at this point, okay? You're going to come up for your 1/4 inch or 1/8 of an inch all the way around. I do probably closer to 1/8, to be honest with you. I gotta poke my little corner out here. Come down, around, back up, and then when you hit this point, you're going to come this way and lock your stitch, okay? So start all the way around and then to here. Cut your thread or follow that line all the way back around if you don't want to cut, and then come in and back down, and then you're going to back stitch here. So it depends, again, up to you. If you prefer not to cut any thread, if you follow this pattern of starting at this point, all the way around, up, you can come down this a second time right here, and then over and down. Or if you don't want to see that second stitch line, if you're worried you won't be able to sew right on top of the line you already created, you can lock your stitch up top here, and then come here and in and down. And then that, again, we're just trying to minimize the number of loose threads we have, the number of points where it can fall apart on us. So let's go ahead and sew one of these together. And voila, a quick press on your napkins and you have a beautiful set of little Christmas trees. Now again, as I mentioned, don't stress if your sew lines are not exactly where you're folding. Again, that's just to help reinforce the napkin. I think it's much prettier to really worry about when you're folding your napkin to line up those edges. Now they do serve as a great guide, and it will make it a lot easier to fold your napkin. And again, honestly, their main intent though is to hold those materials together so they're not slipping and sliding all over, especially when you wash them. They're gonna hold their shape a lot better with those little sew lines. So thank you guys so much for sewing with me today. I hope you picked up your little tree pattern and you have some beautiful little napkins. Use up all those scraps. I hope you also picked up some fun patterns in the shop and used that coupon TREE to get a nice discount on your additional pattern purchases, 10% off. And I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Thanks again for subscribing, and I look forward to sewing with you soon.